Can you guys hear us now?
All right, are we cooking with gas now?
Sounds good.
Yes.
Okay.
Much better.
All right, so
Sorry.
we're gonna call the order.
Technical difficulties.
We're gonna start with introductions. I am Ann Merrill, and I am the chairperson of the Barre City Unhoused Community Committee. I'm gonna have Osa go next.
My name is Osa Bush. I am a street outreach worker with Good Samaritan Haven and part of the Unhoused Community Committee.
Yeah.
I'm Tess Taylor and I am the homelessness and housing liaison for Barre City. And I am not a member of this illustrious group officially by Title I.
Good afternoon, Brooke Pouliot, Community Outreach Specialist for Barre City Police Department and City Liaison, I believe, for this meetings.
Nolan Carver, I'm a member of the Montpelier Homelessness.
Kathy Partlow, I work here at Down Street, which is where we're holding the meeting today.
Zach Hughes, chair of the Montpelier Homelessness Task Force. I do a variety of different community activities, including street outreach as well, volunteer.
I'm Tori Rodine. I'm a member of the Montpelier Homelessness Task Force. I was a social worker for about 35 years. I didn't catch your name, but I think you and my daughter Cora Swanberg know each other.
Pouliot?
Yeah. Cora either knows you or just admires you. I'm not sure which.
Jeez, okay. No, it's hopefully.
So we're doing introductions if you wanna go.
Oh, sure, I'm Beth Mueller,
Oh, it's about this.
the UCC. I live here in Barre.
And Don, I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the,
You wanna go? Go ahead.
no,
You go
I was just gonna call on them.
Don, you gotta go next.
Look, Dawn Little, Montpelier Homelessness Task Force member and street outreach with Good Samaritan Haven.
Meredith, you wanna go next?
Sure. Meredith Warner, Deputy Director at Good Samaritan Haven, and I'm a member of the Homelessness Task Force, and I live in Montpelier.
So we wanted to get together, I guess, to talk about, working together and seeing where we could all help each other in our communities. So it would be good to get some ideas from all of us and have a discussion about that. So anybody have ideas, thoughts?
I just want to say, I've been getting involved in the last year or so in these issues and really getting informed kind of for the first time in my life and having access to media and information to digest. I've just been noticing that, I kind of think of Montpelier and Barre as kind of being in the same neck of the woods together. And I just think that we really have to sort of like have these, liaisons and, good connections and good friends and neighbors kind of dynamics, so that really central government can really, be a leader and make real significant progress and sort of, that's kind of where I'm coming from, is I want us to nail this one good so that we can actually lead the state somehow.
Can I get your name?
I'm Nolan Carver.
Thank you.
I'd be curious to know what you have for on your agenda, basically. And when you started up again and just where you're looking at going in Barre. And I know that I am far less familiar with resources in Barre than I should be, but just curious what you're doing as a group or what your plans are.
So on our agenda for tonight, we have, one of the things we are working on is our mission statement. So we wanted to, as a group, if we have time later, maybe approve the mission statement. We wanted to provide with communication updates. And Osa, I believe, wanted to talk about a safe place for dropping off camping supplies.
Yay.
So, and this is our third, it's our third meeting. So.
I have a few communications updates too, if there's time.
Do you want to provide us with an update on where you guys are?
Sure, I can, try. It, we have a set agenda every couple weeks or whatever it is. I think it's Tori, it's every week.
First and third.
Third, thank you.
It used to be more than that, but it was not.
And really, it started out, don't mind, it started out, years ago, back in 2019, in response to, folks, hanging out in town and being, and the city had originally intended us to be a short-term task force with a report. 30 to 60 days, but when we came back, it was realized that, like everything, this is gonna take a little while longer, and it probably is gonna be ongoing.
Mhm.
So, we've been through a variety of different things. At one time, we give a lot of recommendations in our advisory role to the city council. We have a lot of folks on our task force with experience from different organizations that has been questioned by the community because we're supposed to be citizens and all that, but in reality, the idea is we all know what we bring to the table. And it's not really about competition in the organizations, anything like that. But, we also had we did have, we had a fund for a while and we still have a little bit of the fund that we were managing, a little bit that helped with, things that happen after hours, and stuff like that. And we also, are really pushing community awareness now. We have an outreach, subgroup, a sub-work group working right now, to, and kind of bring to the community's attention that it's, different things around homelessness in general. But we're also having to face every issue
Mhm.
that comes up, and, I think we're trying to also kind of go in our direction that we want to be able to do more, than just the advisory, bit. But that's what we're kind of doing, and, we work with what we have, which isn't always incredibly much, but I would like to tout a couple, accomplishments that we were able to, push some ARPA money through to, get a day space in, Montpelier. It was not for the 7 days that was originally planned, but it is for 5 days. A week, we were able to do that. And generally speaking, I mean, that's, what we do. And we try to keep the city on their toes, obviously, about this stuff. And that's
Thanks, Zach. Oh, no, I think
I think it
that's-
was, I'm sorry, go on.
Go ahead, Don.
No, it's interesting to me because we started out before COVID, and I think it was kind of an advantage for us to be initially active during the beginning days of COVID, because there was a lot of funding around as a result of that. There was newly gained awareness of the presence of homeless people in the area. So we did benefit a lot from that. And I think a lot of the things that we accomplished in the first few years of our existence, partly because they were really physical, simple, obvious things that needed to be done, and there was a lot of goodwill in the community with mutual aid groups and people responding to COVID. So we really got a huge boost from that, and we accomplished a lot of concrete things. And I think one thing that we've run into recently is that the things that we now need to accomplish are larger, more interconnected with at least one community, and more complex. So we don't see the kind of really rapid concrete progress that we did initially. But it's interesting to me just to see, how you progress being, you know, kind of starting from a different point and at a very difficult time.
I think the other thing it did is, every time I get asked by one of our critics, what we're doing. I always say, well, we did open a conversation up because I've lived in Montpelier for a long time and, 27 years on my own, and about 27 years ago. We didn't have these conversations, it was mostly, well, Barry, send them to Barry. It was really, I'm sorry, not Barry, but listen, send them to Barry and, we're not gonna deal with it. So it was really like that, and I think this really, opened the conversation. And then we had the timing with COVID, of course, which, couldn't have been, timed better, I guess, in that sense. But that's what these, bodies are supposed to do, is supposed to open up that awareness. The other thing that I think is interesting is sometimes I think community expects, something to be done right away, and it cannot be always.
I agree with that.
And
I'd
Meredith
also
has her
love
hand up.
to, oh, sorry.
Meredith has her hand up. I was
Meredith, you
drawing
wanna
that to your
go
attention.
next? And then.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to kind of add to some of the things that Dawn said, which is, I think what she was alluding to is that the charge for the Montpelier Homelessness Task Force that was created in 2019 is now a little outdated, given we've been through a pandemic and 2 floods and a steep rise in homelessness. And so I'm really interested to see what your charge or mission ends up being. I think that will be really helpful for us. And then I also just wanted to say a couple things that are both accomplishments, but also need some tending to just from a sustaining factor. Accomplishments of the task force were they helped put in lockers behind the rec center that are utilized by people experiencing homelessness so they can store their belongings. They helped hire a consultant who produced a kind of a plan for the city in terms of what a more holistic response would look like, which included like a day space where there were resources included and all kinds of other things. And follow through on that plan has not been great, in part because it was intertwined with the proposal that the old Montpelier Rec Center on Barre Street be part of the location for that. And that's been wrapped up in a much broader conversation with the city about recreation and resources. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is the encampment policy, which maybe somebody else that's here knows the date that was passed, but that's something that I think we probably need to tend to soon because especially with years of flooding, there's less and less space for people to camp in safely. And in addition to that, there's been, just incidents at particular campsites that the city has then gone on to deem quote unquote sensitive, where people can no longer utilize them. So especially with the motel exits happening, I think we need to we'll have to just tend to the relationship with the city around the encampment policy or just address a change in that policy.
So for history sake, that was 2021 passed and 2024 amended for some wording, I believe.
I wanted to just add that I think we're kind of inching toward, and I would love to see us do more of look at what are the upstream causes of why so very many people are unhoused right now, and also downstream, what are we imagining? How are we imagining building a community in which there is housing for everybody, and it doesn't have to be the same housing for it doesn't have to be one size fits all, but where we're really envisioning that that we can go beyond putting out fires to actually building a more humane community. That's on my mind a lot of the time.
Kathy?
I know that we're like grounding ourselves in the work, but a couple of things. If you have the amended language of that policy, I think many of us in
Yes.
Barre would like to just take a look at that.
I think that the amendment honestly was was in the service of trying to kick people out of housing, out of camping up a country club road. There was a whole issue around that, and I think that that's what the amendment is, but we can find that.
We can send it over.
Yeah, just
Well,
what is the current
keeping in
policy?
mind,
I don't think it's more elegant than
We
that.
just send it over.
Keeping in mind that the purpose of the policy was for the response of city workers to the presence of people
Yeah.
camping on city land.
Yeah,
Which is
And that-
basically to
yeah.
be neutral and not to
Right.
criminalize people.
So with that,
The
okay.
second thing I wanted to say, other than asking for that language, is that I'm really thinking with us joining together tonight for a conversation and the fact that in 2 weeks, cold weather ends, as far as the state's concerned so far, we know that there's some last ditch efforts happening, but it doesn't so far seem like it's gonna be very fruitful. And I think with both of us together, it might be
Right.
potentially worth a conversation about what each community might be thinking about right now and how we might work together to deal with some of that. That's it. Thanks.
That was one of my thoughts, is I wanted to talk about. With the motels possibly exiting in less than a few weeks, you know, what's that gonna look like, and how can we as a group start to support and help people? And one of the things I really liked was OSA already thinking about getting camping supplies ready. Um, so it would be great for us to try to put it out there so that we know where.
Mhm.
And if we could figure out a safe place to put all that, would be great.
What do you mean by safe place to put all?
Like, I think a safe place, so where we could say, like, Zach could say, okay, you need to go here to pick up camping supplies.
Oh, that. yeah,
Or,
that's the
you know,
Conversation later.
yeah.
Yep. Whenever,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, okay. I wasn't ready. Yeah, I mean, generally when I hand out camping gear to folks, someone will get a hold of me, however they do. Ask for whatever they're looking for. I get whatever it is that I'm able to support them with. And then we always agree on a public facing
Yeah.
space.
Mhm.
But it can be any time of the day, and that includes like the super early in the morning hours. And even if you are in a public space and it's, 2 in the morning on a Sunday in any of our cities, in Montpelier or Barre, that to me doesn't feel safe enough for me to meet a random person. Like it makes me very uncomfortable to meet someone alone when I don't know them well enough. Or even if I do, I mean, you never know. So having like for our city, a place in North End, a place in the middle of the city, and a place in South End that I can be like, you can go and pick up your stuff at random location. And I still do that, but it's always very, very like, hey, Dawn, can we think of a spot that no one's gonna take this camping gear in the next half an hour to 2 hours? That's also not super obvious, but I can get in and out of without alerting anyone, and nobody's gonna really see me. I've been trying to think of like techie or semi-techie ways to create like a physical holding container that would be able to be either accessed when someone specifically has that need to get it, so that it wouldn't be able to be accessed otherwise. Or it would always have like a couple blankets and a tarp or two, so that people could access it whenever they wanted. But there's lots of bits and pieces in there where it can also then become a Dropbox for other uses, and I can see that becoming like an issue with the city. But you're gonna have that no matter what, so there's a lot of like back and forth with that too. But my whole thing is just that I need to be able to, and anyone that's doing street outreach needs to be able to have safe locations that they can do a drop.
Mhm.
And also have it be safe-ish for the camping gear.
And sometimes they have to take a risk with the drops because I don't, one time I was asked to go all the way out to like the House of Tang once and I said no.
Yeah.
And we did a safe, well, I did drop in a parking lot.
Yeah.
And said, good luck. I hope they grab it before it's grabbed.
Yeah.
So
The
that's,
situation often evolves during the court. You'd think that you would just go meet, you would agree on a place, you go meet them. give him the gear and you leave, but often the situation will evolve, like OSA will arrive at the place where you're supposed to meet this single woman and there will be 6 guys there that we don't know. You know, or the person will call up, you know, rather than meeting you in this well-lit place, they will say, oh, I need to meet you here instead. And that may not be a place where it's safe to go to. So
So they,
having more than one spot so that we can change to, you know, to meet basically whatever is required without putting other people at risk or ourselves, or running the risk of putting the gear out there and having someone steal it before they get to it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
are
we could
you,
limit our hours, but we really hate to do that, especially during cold weather or bad weather.
True.
are you thinking a box like 3x3x4, something like that?
Something that a tent can, yeah, so like, I mean, maybe it probably doesn't need to be 3 feet by 3 feet. It could be like 3 feet by like 2 feet by 2 feet. It doesn't need to be very big. It would want to be waterproofed somehow.
Mhm.
So like a
A
Tupperware,
box with a tote in
slightly
it.
heavier.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, a box with a tote in it. And I'm probably gonna regret saying this further down the line, but I'm happy to monitor them and make sure that they stay with what they are doing. It's recorded now, I can't.
play back.
So,
Thought about it.
could you give us an idea, like, what do you guys have right now for supplies on hand? Any?
I have 3 tents, but they are very large, and so typically I only give out large tents. I try to only give out large tents to an individual that's gonna be very, very long term at their location. Of course, I will give someone, if it's an emergency and bad weather, any size tent.
Mhm.
Or if it's a family and they need a tent, or if it's even 3 or 4 people, I'll generally give them a larger tent. But it would be incredibly helpful to have a bunch load of 3-person tents. 1 and 2-person tents, we've realized, or I've realized over this past 6 months, that they're actually really not helpful. Because it's claustrophobic. If you have any type of backpack, you no longer have, 3 feet of space almost. And then, like, I had 3 people trying to stay in a 1-person tent this past winter, so,
Wow.
3-person tents are beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, but even we're getting into the season where like even having tarps would be better than not having anything, but, yeah, 3-person tents and tarps and blankets or sleeping bags are my top items. That would be super helpful. And then I'll take literally anything else.
having a place to put them would be nice too, of course.
True. Sorry.
Another thing I'd really, this is taking a step back from something that is as extremely useful as a tent and a sleeping bag. Something I realized today that we had not done as a task force in our city council, I think is not done, but maybe you guys have, or maybe your city council has, is when Governor Scott has made absurd proposals to the legislature saying, oh, just give the money to the cities and towns and let them manage it. And then has been astounded that the cities and towns have not said, oh, yes, let's do that. What I think, one thing that would be very helpful and that I wish that we had thought of a couple of weeks ago is for the city councils and the select boards of the different towns, including Montpelier and Barre, and with us advising them to tell them that they need to do this, to write letters to the governor saying, we can't do this, and this is why. This is a really bad idea, and this is why it's a bad idea. Because right now what we have is a bunch of people like us who are sort of, fairly easy to dismiss as kind of do-gooding, people. Whereas if the cities themselves, if the administration of the cities themselves is saying, this is a really bad plan, that I think could actually make a difference. Because everybody knows that we're already gonna say, no, people should not be kicked out of motels. But if the cities say, no, we're not taking this on, I think that would have more impact. So if there's
We ha-
any
we
time
have
at all
done
to
that.
do that.
I don't know if Montpelier administration has done that, but Berry City administration
Good,
has.
great. So I would love, maybe sometime you can say more about that.
And the latest proposal, which is not necessarily by the governor, but I think informed by what the governor has said, is that the cap agencies would
Mhm.
hold the funding for this, and so it would still be done in local communities, but that the cap agencies would do that. And they had not asked for that either, by the way. It wasn't,
No.
it's just
No.
No,
a
it was
proposal.
actually a proposal because they're afraid they're gonna miss the GA
Mhm,
funding altogether.
mhm.
So I think the proposal was a desperate for it to be go to the caps was a desperate act to keep it
Mhm.
at all.
It isn't the first time that the caps have
Yeah.
passed.
Yeah.
It's-
Oh, no, I had a good conversation with Gus Seelig for how long has he been not working at a cap?
I know, a
And he said
very
they were
long
doing
time.
it then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
No, I know, I mean, this is typical of pushing
Mhm.
stuff away from the government to make it look like we don't have a good government.
That you're giving back to the community.
And it is the state's job.
It's pushing the responsibility onto somebody else, so they can't come back, and also makes it way easier to defund.
Exactly.
If it's a grant to the community versus an actual state program.
Mhm.
That's my pessimistic view of it anyway.
It has not worked in other areas,
Ah,
not worked well.
maybe they ought to look at that.
Meredith just
Yeah,
put in the
I
chat that
read it.
Don's having technical issues.
Go ahead.
Also, would you, well, I could check around with some churches in various locations to see if they would be open to the idea of hosting a box with camping gear.
I don't wanna put it on, that's the other hard part of it, is if I stick it on, it everywhere is gonna be like a property location. Thank you, sorry, not trying to dismiss.
Yeah, no worries.
In a sense, like Enough Ministries already has a space that they have supplies, and I'll often like sneak in and not sneak, I often go in the middle of the night and drop hand warmers on cold days and like
Yeah,
have it.
like that would be ideal. That's so known.
But yeah, maybe churches definitely would be more than happy to have a conversation with them about what their thoughts are before we, I think Green Church has been having a hard time with folks like camping on their location. So that's the other like
Roof?
hard, no, oh, really? Oh, gee,
Wow.
I heard porch, but that's different, wow.
What, roof?
Roof,
Oh, yeah,
I've heard it. Roofs are great. Vantage point.
Well, I mean, what would
Yeah.
your ideal location be like?
I have no idea yet.
Okay,
I thought techie so far, and then I
Yeah.
got busy with work. I think the furthest north end church is like Green Church and the,
Actually,
School
it's the
one.
one down by the.
it used to be Hell Printing.
oh, that's right, House
Yeah.
Printing. That's probably too north end though.
However, I've never seen them.
They helped a
Wanna
lot
act-
during the flood.
They did, but
Yeah, but yeah, churches could be a good idea. I get a lot of donations from the churches also.
Mhm.
I have some camping gear to pick up on
Oh, good.
tomorrow.
Good.
Thursday at heading, so I can talk to her tomorrow at heading and see.
Mhm.
What's going on with the Salvation Army site? I know that it's not occupied or anything, but I'm wondering about that being,
right
No?
over here.
As a drop spot.
no, actually, I was talking about down like
Yeah, that
by
one.
Dollar,
Oh,
I was
that
thinking for a
across.
drop spot. I'm wondering if it's not being utilized.
I think it's too close to the police station for
Okay,
folks to be comfortable.
fair enough.
Yeah, but
Yeah, that might be an
But-
interesting thing to just find out if it could
Yeah.
be used in any purpose.
yeah,
I think the building's
I think the
completely
building's
shot, but I was
gone.
just more thinking
Just
about
the-
it being
the-
kind of central-ish.
yeah,
and-
that's north end at that point. That would be my thoughts of being north end, and then
Mhm.
central would be
And
anywhere in here.
Like,
And I have a thought about what you said about, that you reluctantly would say that you would monitor them. But that's a great community, huh?
I would absolutely monitor them,
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
that's also, you
Yeah.
can get help with that, with,
absolutely.
cause, asking community members to adopt it
Mhm.
is something that people can say, you know, like, I'd like to help, but I never know what I can do.
Right.
And that's,
That's
you know, when you've got concrete things, that's always to me a blessing, because
Mm.
then you've got something you can actually, actionable that you can actually hand over to somebody,
That's
so
beautiful,
we'll
that's a good
we'll
thought,
keep talking about that.
yeah.
I love that, actually.
Yeah, I get that question a lot, it's like, how can we help you? And I'm like, I have no idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can offer, like, if you can offer donations, that's totally cool, you get the word out and stuff, that's also
Yeah.
great, but it's hard to answer that.
Let's formalize a list.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. So. Yeah,
Okay.
I, a question, suggestion, I don't know, but as we're getting closer to the cold weather exception ending, I know in the past, when like all the hotels are winding down, that Barre and Montpelier had these like group meetings about like who is being exited from what hotel,
Mhm.
and then different agencies were there, but even like if we could each get numbers, or like if, you know, so then we could be like, okay, so maybe these 4 or 5 rooms at each place, so then we'll know, like, do they have a plan? Do they need tents? Like,
Right.
what's going on? Yeah.
that's really good, because, Brenda Siegel is putting out a little APB of wanting to talk to people who are being exited or having them come to the State House. And I said, well, I'm not privy to that information. I'm not
Mhm.
part of the whole,
Yeah.
yeah.
Guys,
Do you know?
looking at the screen, wondering if Meredith is
Oh.
solid or not.
We're just looking at
Meredith, you guys- So I was gonna ask, because I know that, what's his name used to have numbers all the time.
Oh, Rick.
Rick.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, we're working with about 35 households right now in the motels, and we just systematically on Monday went through and looked like how many days do they have left on their voucher, if any, you know, all the things. So and then we are also internally from Good Sam, for the people that we're supporting, starting to think about how we can find those folks who don't have any more days left, something stable, and trying to kind of cobble a response together that way for now. So yeah, I mean, we tend to that based on who's already on our kind of case management load through our motel program. But it'd be great to, you know, have those broader numbers from all the different providers who are working with different motels.
Mhm.
Do you know who convened that meeting?
I truly do not.
Wonder if
It
economic
was-
services could give us
Yeah,
those.
No, I was there. It was a joint, it was just a joint
Yeah.
effort.
Between the city manager.
It was the W chat group.
Yeah.
And we sort of reached out through that, and also it was the homelessness task force that was at the time, so many of you were not actually on it, but we all kind of got together, and it was city managers, and
even
it was a
the
good sized
chief
group.
Showed up.
Yep.
And.
And fire chief, like, we had
Yeah.
services there, yeah.
Big
Yeah.
deal.
It was,
Yeah.
those were good meetings.
And you actually got down into the granular thing of who's getting, you know.
We didn't talk about individual cases, but what we talked about was, you know, what are city policies gonna be when this happens? Who
Who's doing what?
who were we supposed to call when X happens or Y happens?
And like we've coordinated, sorry. I didn't mean
Yeah,
to-
no, go.
But like we coordinated, like I know I'd go to the budget and anyone
Yeah.
was checking
Mhm.
out. And then like certain people, like Jackie Jones's team would go
Mhm.
to whatever hotels.
Yep,
Yes.
yep,
And
okay.
then like we had to go for people kind of on standby of like, okay,
Yeah,
we might, so it was a lot of collaboration between
Mhm.
both cities and all of our agencies that we work with.
Mhm.
So.
and you know, Sunrise had put
Yeah,
together
yeah.
some stuff. And they used their truck at the time to do
Yeah.
some heavy
And they met me in
transports
random places that
in
I,
random places.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it was really a coordinated
yeah.
push.
Yeah.
And we have the state there as well.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was not, it was economic services, it was AHS,
And,
we
yeah,
did
that's
several
needed,
times,
it's
yeah.
always there. Yeah.
I can say that because we are closing on Speranza very shortly, which is, the Quality Inn now for those folks listening. I am actively in conversations with Economic Services about how we're gonna handle that transition. And I can reach out to them to see if they've done an analysis of if everything ends like it's slated to currently, on, 4/1.
Yeah.
Then who is out of days, who's used their 80 already? Like how, just by how many people are there? How many households are there? And how many of those are families? How many of those are sort of individuals? They should have that information, and I'm sure that they can pull it rather easily, just in terms of who has additional eligibility, so that we can do some planning.
Will that turn into housing then, when you all close on it, or?
No, it is going to remain it's going to change from a for-profit hotel
Right.
to a nonprofit
Mhm.
trauma-informed homeless services
Right.
hotel. It's still a hotel.
So.
I can
Go
share
ahead.
just a couple numbers that were shared by Lily Sojourner. I think Kathy, you were at that meeting earlier this week. I can't even remember what day it was. But it was, yeah, I mean, they're expecting across, and this is statewide, approximately 450 households to be exiting the shelter. And it's also sounded like, in addition to that, they had about 1,000 people that will remain in. And with the cap at 1,100, that leaves 100 rooms that are people who might be sitting on a voucher that they haven't been able to utilize because there was no room available, could potentially move into. So there's also going to be this transfer that occurs where some people will come out and some people, I was just talking with somebody yesterday who says, I have a voucher, but I can't get a room. And so that's a thing too, just to keep in mind. But if we could get the Washington County numbers from them, that would be really great. As granular as possible, I think.
Yeah,
The, the other thing that's happening, I've got letters on 3 different people's behalves today that came out from economic, notifying folks about that exit. And that if they don't have 80 days, in play, that grade 1. It's gonna be, and then they go on to explain about the legislative mix right now and all that, and then they talk about if they wanna find out about their 80 days, who to call. So we know those letters are going out, cause we received 3 of them today.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, if it doesn't get extended, and it's not looking great right now, but if it doesn't get extended, then we can expect maybe as many as 80 of those households. We have such a large population in terms of the state that we could expect a really good chunk of folks who are ineligible here. When most of our shelter system I know everything changes on the day, like you have an opening over here, but then it gets filled, but everybody's pretty much full.
And what's sad is they're sending some of them out of county.
Yeah.
And I can say that because a couple of our
Mhm.
folks are out of county.
Mhm.
And it's hard to case manage somebody who's
Mhm.
down in Hartford area.
Yeah.
It's really a struggle.
Right.
Oh, Meredith has put a
Yeah.
couple of things in the chat.
The one is just the notice that Zach was talking about, which is probably like clearer language if you need to share it with any motel guests. And then the other is notes to that meeting, which have there is some relaxation of just administrative process because they're anticipating a lot of need for phone calls. So that's something to note with folks too. Like they had like a staggered time that people could call in, which is now available. You can call anytime up till 6 p.m. So things like that you can read in the notes if you're working with a guest that are helpful.
Thank you. So do we want to, I know it's very local, but there's the day space in Montpelier right now. I'm just thinking about what are local resources for folks that have no place to be. Because we're gonna find out the need. hopefully, right? We're hopefully gonna find out the need when we ask ESD for that, like local need, but or additional local need, I'll say, on 4-1. Because it is possible that some of the meetings like that, Tess, you've been holding those sort of lunchtime meetings. Maybe we can cobble together something additional
Mhm.
for extra cold weather nights like you've been doing here in Barre. When it's really cold and they open up for a day or two.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you're aware, but we just got, a notice that, there's an RFP due by April 25th for an entity or entities to apply for funding for next winter's emergency shelter work.
Meaning like the overflow type stuff that you've been doing. Yeah.
And
Not you
so
solely,
somebody-
but
It's gonna be,
Yeah. I'm working with some people right now, so, because I'm kind of hoping that we could put together something that spans Montpelier and Barre. At the very least. To get more bang for the buck.
that would be great. But that is for next.
And that's for when the colds starts happening, yeah, next season.
and so will that be defined as just the morning hours or possibility of an overnight or?
It's for overnight.
It is.
It's for overnight,
Awesome.
like our pop-up
Yeah,
overnight shelters and what we need.
that's great.
Yeah.
Of course, first thing I put down was sprinkler system.
Yeah. Ever loving sprinkler system.
Yeah.
Mm,
But yeah, it's. So there's that, but that doesn't solve this.
No.
What would not solve this, but what would be helpful. In these days coming up, if we're gonna keep in Barre, and I would say Montpelier too, but if we're gonna keep our daytime hours together. With our volunteers, I think it would be really incumbent to get as much service provider. As many service providers there as possible as well. I mean, can they count those as work hours if they're coming there? And tell people, come here, have a cup of coffee, have a bite to eat, and sit down with some service providers and maybe. You can start getting on the road of finding. Cause I don't know how much they're getting now in the motels, and I don't know. And it's so up in the air, what's gonna be available, because they're hashing it out in Montpelier as well.
exactly.
It's tough, but I've been wanting for, I think we've done a really good job on both places to have a community face on having people come and be with us and help them feel like they're our neighbors in our community as well. I feel an incredible rapport with the people that come down to ours, and I'm sure in Montpelier, that's the same case. And so that's really good. But the added step would be getting service providers and good information. Our church people don't know that stuff.
Right.
We have been having really good we've had a person coming down 2 days a week from Turning Point, which is very helpful.
Nice.
Yes, would there be any merit in training? I've got very, very, very out-of-date information in my head about running a little grassroots agency like 35 or 40 years ago, where we trained volunteers to do a lot of information and referral. The world has changed a lot since then, but are there ways that kind of more training and more support could help more of the church people know more stuff? As well as service providers.
Sure, I mean, we are talking about trainings, Tori, so yeah, that's good, and we're talking about trainings, and I think Beth is gonna present on the piece of how do we get people to know about the most up-to-date information.
Yeah.
about the resources, because what's happening is you train people on a piece of paper in
Yeah,
front of you,
changes,
but
yeah.
it becomes
Yeah,
obsolete
sure.
almost immediately, especially in 2025.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I mean, and so we are talking about trainings, and that was one of the trainings would be how to make yourself familiar with what it actually even means.
Yeah,
On this, because it's on this little piece of paper that's
Sure.
just like this little writing and lots of words, and
yeah.
so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure.
Do you think it would be a good idea if we, as a committee, authored a letter or an email to both providers in our community and to churches in our community, and just say, looks like we're facing this situation, can you please kind of think on the fly what you might be able to contribute and start compiling that?
Yeah, I don't think, sure, but I don't think people on their own think about what they can contribute. I think
should
it's a
have an
lot of
ask.
conversations, which is what I've been having, and
Right.
try to have even more.
Want to call a meeting?
I could call another lunch meeting and try to, you know, I mean,
This is
that,
happening so fast.
these are you know, that's why I started those meetings
Yeah.
last September, was to get as many people that are doing this work together.
Yeah,
And talking about it and thinking about it, and I mean, I'm pretty impressed with some of the things that have moved along already and the things that wanna still happen. But I think what we have to do is outline what the needs are and then say, you know, like, can you do it? Can you do it? Like, what do you think, how much of this do you think you can do?
Barre's really good at that, like, not putting anyone on the spot, but.
Yeah, yeah.
He's really good at
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And I'm wondering if we can rally one of those meetings, if like then we include Montpelier as well.
Yeah, so who's included now that is important to Montpelier is regional providers. So the only thing that's missing is individuals from Montpelier who are actually doing the volunteer work.
And I would also just say, if we did pull that together, I think it's really important to include the Kellogg Hubbard Library in that, especially you've been holding them at the Aldrich, and I know that they communicate, and the Kellogg Hubbard is so important to the response in Montpelier right now. And I think sometimes get left out of the conversation just because they have such a unique space in the community that's disconnected from some of the other responses, so.
Yeah.
And then I would also say too, like, I don't know, just going back to when you were all talking about those kind of the meetings that happened during one of the other motel exits where actually, emergency response and city officials were participating. Part of that, if that were to occur again, really thinking regionally by including Berlin as well, that whole continuum between Barre to Montpelier include Berlin as well. So.
Actually, I think some of the Berlin council people or somebody, there were a few.
Yeah. Yeah.
People from Berlin were there as well.
Yeah.
But yes.
what should I, that meeting?
I think we called it a summit, that's kind of where
Okay,
it
yeah,
is.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
that's a good,
But it's so funny, because then that's what we call.
that's what we call.
Yeah, I would call it summits.
Okay,
And I wanna say we had like 2 or 3 of them.
We had them like every other
I thought
week
it
or
was
like
weekly,
monthly,
wasn't
like
it?
it was for a
We
bit.
had, yeah,
But I also think,
Good.
last year's, I guess it was last year, right?
Yep.
It was more urgency because we were coming out of a, everybody was coming out. It wasn't like what we have here where we kind of know now, a little bit. Whereas before, well, they were in a hotel for 3 or 4 years and some of them, and well, they're coming out.
Mhm.
So I think that urgency was like, what do
It's
we
done.
do?
Mhm.
And that's why those summits suddenly came together. Hate to do this part, but at some part we'll get to this part. And I think it came up today at the tail end of homelessness task force, as it always does. Is, well, something to think about, is, now that we have to do some thinking. It's not just us, but I'm talking about policymakers in general. They don't wanna do the hotels. Okay, we gotta sit down and do other, options, which some of us have been around this block. Before I was talking about it like 10 years ago, I was working with people in transitional housing, stuff like that. So, I know that's not something that's urgent right now, but as we're, going through it, but when are people gonna, when are the policymakers gonna sit down and actually have these conversations that they keep avoiding by extending the hotel program? Sorry, just putting it out there.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you, that's interesting. Yeah, we tend to bring out the nitty gritty and sort of all the taboo subjects in this sort of controversial, topic, cause, people feel strongly. The governor has different views than many of us in these committees tend to have. And like Tori was saying earlier, there's the upstream causes and then there's the downstream issues. And so that's really kind of what interests me here is kind of sorting out sort of where are those upstream dynamics and downstream and how can we kind of see the big picture at the same time.
Nice.
And I guess that's gonna mean calling each other out here and there. For having kind of presumptions or outdated, perspectives, and that could be a tricky. A tricky conversation because someone's bound to get offended somehow. Right.
Mhm.
I want to just add to that I think this meeting is amazing because it's a first step as kind of spanning the towns at this level. And I think that's really important. I think there's a real potential that we'll continue to face additional insecurity in the coming years. And to the extent that we can shore up our relationships regionally and build our own safety net, that's going to be how we sustain ourselves. So I just want to hold that up as, I don't know, it feels important and significant and a move in the right direction to be really shoring that up.
And the other thing that this brings to mind is the conversations that often came up in our task force and city council meetings was, we need to do a regional, approach.
Yeah.
We're not gonna be, saving everybody or whatever it was. It was a very interesting conversation and it was, why don't we all three, between, Montpelier, Barre and Berlin come into a regional, spin.
Yeah.
So.
Meredith, I'm sending you a smile through the Zoom. I'm actually sitting across from the Zoom, so there's a smile coming to you. On Zoom.
There, now she can see you. Oh, gotcha.
And Tess, I just want to say how much to everybody, how much I'm appreciating that this meeting is happening and that it can happen in person. But also Tess, when I came to the lunch summit or whatever it was a couple of weeks ago, I was, that's one of the things that, I tend to function much better organizing things when there is somebody who kind of has a mind to networking and a mind to like, well, what, where are all the threads and how do we pull these threads together? And I've really, that's a huge gift that you're providing that in
Oh, thank you.
the Barre community and hopefully beyond. Because we have so much, somebody at our task force meeting today was coming up with some great idea about something, and I was finally like, that's a great idea, but what's our first step with that great idea? And I think just for somebody to have an overview of, okay, well, here are the 12 great ideas, now what are we gonna do first?
And to be fair, we're gonna share it with this committee. The idea was actually, has been done in Burlington, was to look at the federal buildings that are about to be dispensed with. But the first challenge that was immediately identified was what?
Water.
Oh, floodplain.
Yep.
So I'm just gonna leave it right there.
Yep.
And, that's what we played with today.
So one of my thoughts was, as I'm listening to everybody, and all of us coming together as one group today is, would you guys in Montpelier want to do this again
Oh, yeah.
with all of us?
Oh, yeah.
I just think that it would be beneficial for all of us to kind of combine the forces here.
Absolutely.
Because it's not just a one person, it's gotta be all of us together.
Yeah.
Alright,
Great.
so you and I can talk about that and communicate together.
Yep.
But I know that before we all leave and wind down, Beth had some updates she wanted to provide with all of us.
Yeah, I mean, do Montpelier people, do you wanna stay for this or?
It's fine.
Okay, all right.
I'm
we had
gonna-
talked-
Sorry, I'm gonna step off now and go help my family with dinner. Thank you all for hosting us. It was really
Bye,
nice to meet you. Bye, thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
We had talked about making stickers that could be put out, you know, all about to help folks get access to that beautiful list that Washington County Mental Health has put together of all the resources. So here's the stickers. We can all take some and
Great
I'm
job.
Yeah,
sorry,
excellent.
what do the stickers do exactly? I mean.
You scan it with your cell
Oh,
phone and
okay,
it should
that's-
bring it
It
up.
takes you to the survivor side.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right,
So
good.
you can
That's pretty
scan
cool.
it, or somebody can scan it for you and print it out if you're like at the library or something.
yeah,
And yeah, and what's really great about it is it has the most recent
Yeah.
updates that Jerry's made on it.
Great.
Because like we know, it becomes obsolete
Alright,
almost.
alright.
They are, they're just
Kindly
as,
open that bag.
they're just as, amazing. It is, it's good, it's a good size. The nice thing is that they can be put up anywhere, right? Because,
Yeah.
Oh, look
know,
at
you know,
you.
it reminded me of those who are younger than me might not
Oh,
remember this, but, it reminds me of, when you would go out at night and you would go to a restaurant or whatever, and you would go into a bathroom stall, every bathroom stall had information about AIDS.
oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
right, or human
Yes,
trafficking.
it
or,
was
you know,
everywhere, yeah.
Specifically about AIDS, and I just love that
These will be
because it's
great.
such a good, public service. And so we could put them
Might as well,
anywhere,
because we're all gonna be.
and they do, they do apply to Montpelier as well, of course, because Washington County Mental Health is regional,
Yeah.
so.
Oh.
I'll just give you
Well,
whatever.
Susan Barry, just kidding.
That's interesting you say that about AIDS. I found a freebie package of fresh syringes on Shelburne Road near a bus stop.
Yeah,
And I thought about it later and I was, those syringes are there because we're in this heroin pandemic.
yeah,
And they reduce the HIV transmission in our society.
yes,
So things like that go a long way.
yes, yeah.
Thank you. Beth.
Oh, yeah.
That's a
Amazing.
great update. Thank
Yeah.
you.
No,
Yeah.
We were actually
Um,
talking at
we had,
our committee meeting about there needs to be exactly what you just gave us, so thank you.
yeah, and let's all keep Jerry updated with, you know,
It'd be
whatever.
great
you
if it
think
said
we're
Central
doing, let me
Vermont.
know.
Yeah.
Instead of Barry, but
Oh, what a beautiful little message.
it's so great though.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I love it.
But it does go.
That wasn't a criticism, but I just think it could be more widely used if it said Central Vermont instead of Barry.
Well, and more than we're interested, so.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we
But
can
it's awesome.
fix it for next time, I mean,
Yeah.
for the next.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
it's-
I'll make little stickers.
Oh,
I'll make
okay.
little stickers.
So, Meredith, was that the only update you had for us? today?
Oh, no, just a few other quickies. We had talked about, or I had talked about setting up G Drive for us to be able to all have access, and it's not as simple as I thought. We could try to be a nonprofit and be able to use it as a team, but that is not simple. We could pay for it, but we have no money. So what I did, I just did one as an alias on one of my accounts,
Right.
which we can all access. We can't email out of it because it would come from me. But we could receive emails there. One of us could monitor it and just let the team know what's come in.
Yeah,
And then we could also set up folders and keep our documents there, our agendas, minutes, blah, blah, you know, if we're applying for grants, anything like that. So what do you think? Does that interest anybody?
Whoever's monitoring it is gonna also notice whenever any of us use the same login and password, that is gonna have almost constant, or every time that'll happen, wherever you are is going to give a new like pop up of this new device has logged into your account. Is this something that you're okay with? Which.
Here to go out the side door? Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
See some of you folks next week or in a week or two and continue this conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much.
Or anyway, we can think about it, you know,
I wasn't canceling your thought, I
Yeah,
just wanted to make
you know,
sure it was
just-
known.
throwing that out there.
So
Do we have any restrictions being a city committee doing that? If it's just for our working product and not necessarily official business?
Well, I know the Cow Pasture Committee they have like one designated email address, and I'm assuming this is what they did. I don't know.
Okay.
I wanted to ask them, I don't know.
We gotta get our own cow pasture.
Right.
That's Hubbard
You know,
Park.
yeah, we were told, that if there's enough people, on an email, I don't know if this is true of G Drive or not, to constitute a quorum, then we're violating the Open Meeting Act to do that, so, we can don't put more than about 3 people on an address and then to everybody is a,
Blank
blank
copy,
carbon copy.
that's doable.
I would, you must have a city attorney, I mean, I would ask like somebody who actually, knows that kind of thing, which I don't.
Okay, right. Well, all right, so we'll just sort of put that to the side.
Let's have fun with that.
And then, we had also talked briefly about the hazard mitigation plan for Barre.
Oh, yeah.
And I did check in with, Joe Aldsworth, and we had a nice long conversation. He sent me out the 111-page plan, which
Is it digital?
Yeah, it's a PDF. It's very big, long thing, sure. And just to sort of sum up what he said, you know, we were concerned about campers and how they, you know, in the event of a weather catastrophe, how do we get the word to them? And he said, well, you know, either BT alert or outreach workers.
Like yourself.
So it wasn't anything more fully formed than probably what we already knew about. He also mentioned that the Red Cross is planning to stand up a training for how to set up a warming or cooling shelter, and I think he copied you on it too, I don't know. And he sent me like the grid work of how you decide what you want for extreme temperatures. And I was kind of pushing, could we have a policy where when X temperature is hit, then all of a sudden there's gonna be an overnight shelter that happens. So it's really not much information for you, but he did send me out, so like sort of a framework that this could be thought through and, you know, decisions made and figure out how to do it. So he is, you know, they are kind of thinking about it.
It's always challenging with that mitigation planning, emergency planning. Just saying, you know, the outreach, folks have to go out, having to go out to, you know, do this and, you know, and running into some minor, oh, yeah, right, it's not really gonna, you know, but yeah. I think the more we can keep pressing that, better, because the weather conditions are changing. I was just talking about this, I mean, last year, first time in Vermont that I'd ever run into a tornado warning in the summer up here.
Yeah.
So I think it's worthy to keep, you know, that in mind too.
all right, so it's,
The other thing is, when we know in advance, which certainly is not always the case with bad weather or flooding, but to make sure that someone is responsible for posting a notice at community dinners and warming centers and places where people are likely to go. And then on top of that, you know, the outreach workers, but I do know that in the past, we've had pretty good luck posting them in well-traveled places.
Oh, all right, that's good
That's
to
good.
know.
I know we have to wind down, but we need to have the quick conversation about our next
Yeah.
meeting and whether we're going to continue having meetings here or not. I think we needed a full-on
So, yeah,
decision.
it's only the 4 of us, so are we
Oh,
gonna?
it is, it's the 4 of us.
And the only reason why I bring it up is because Brooke had brought it up that we need to let the chief know if we're gonna do it here from now on. So,
we can do it here, but I'm fine with wherever anybody wants to meet.
Yeah,
So-
same here.
I'm fine too, it doesn't matter.
I love it here.
So-
We don't have
so
the
do-
intercom and all the.
So do we decide on here and then we just let the chief know that we're gonna do it here from now on?
Yeah, he just needs to know that it's not there.
Right.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
that, Brooke, do you wanna let him know?
I'll email.
Thank you. And with that being said, it's actually almost 10 after. Our next meeting for Barry is on April 16th.
It's a funny day.
It is,
The day that everybody gets to breathe.
Oh,
after tax day. With that being said, one of my other questions was as us, because we always seem to go a little over as a group. Would we want to extend our meeting by maybe a half hour or start it a half hour
that's-
earlier?
That's typical of meetings, is that 90 minutes? And
Yeah.
then if you get out early, you can. some of
Yeah.
I
So-
can start a half hour earlier and I can stay a half hour after, so I guess it
So
doesn't
do we
really
wanna
matter
do
to me.
that? I mean,
yeah, I can do whatever.
okay,
Um,
so we
yeah, I
can,
can do it. I would prefer to.
Do you guys have Zoom access to your meetings? Are they public meetings or?
Yes.
yep, they are. Yep,
Yeah.
It's on I can send it to you, Dawn, but it's on the
Thank
city
you.
council website too.
yep.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
With that being said. Let's adjourn the meeting. Who's going to second it? Kathy will. With that being said. Thank you for attending, Dawn. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Did you take off from there?
No, let me, we're done, so I'm gonna turn this off.
Quick.